Good morning, I'm Pauline Verzosa sitting in for Gretchen Ho. It is Wednesday, the 4th of December, and we're bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. Now, while the government tries to get back public funds stolen in the flood control projects, the Cybercrime Investigation and Coordination Center, or CICC, found that some of those involved in the scam are now laundering money through cryptocurrencies. In response to persistent questions over alleged irregularities in government projects, the palace stated that the First Family is open to submitting to lifestyle checks. And the manhunt continues in order to capture former Ako Bicol Party List Representative Zaldi Co. We will get the latest information on this directly from DOJ spokesperson Attorney Polo Martinez later on in the program. Welcome to our program, Morning Matters, where we talk about the issues you need to know for the rest of your day. And now first on the agenda, the first live-streamed hearing of the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, or ICI, turned tense as Laguna Representative Benjamin Agarao faced accusations of millions of kickback from flood control contractors. Here's that report.
In the first live-streamed hearing of the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, Laguna 4th District Representative Benjamin Agarao was the opening witness. He is among those implicated by contractor Curly Discaya, who claimed Agarao allegedly received a 9 million peso advance commission for flood control projects. Agarao denied knowing the Discayas at all. He also denied having any bagman or right-hand person who could have talked to the contractors. He insisted he never received any gift, not even a supposed exotic bulldog.
Kasi may lumalabas na may regalo daw na exotic bulldog.
Hindi po ako mahilig sa bulldog dahil po malaway po yun eh. Talaga pong, ang first love ko pong aso ay German Shepherd. Dahil pogi po.
Agarao was also asked whether he would agree to submit his phone records or messages from his cell phone, but the congressman declined.
Hindi po. Kasi ang cellphone ko po eh, dalawa lang po eh. Yung pong bago kong cellphone, sa Viber lang po namin sa partido at saka po sa CA. Ito po lang ang aking cellphone. Eh, may mga ibang detalye po ito na hindi ko po pwedeng baka po magalit ang asawa ko.
Kaya ayaw namin ng live streaming, naririnig ng mga tao tungkol sa asawa. But tiyatanong ko lang if you're willing to surrender the cellphone. Kasi nga po, we are investigating everything na na-allege. Pasensya kayo kung natanong ko tungkol sa asawa ninyo. Kaya ayoko ng live streaming talaga eh.
Because he was implicated in the flood control scandal, Agarao said he is now studying the possibility of filing charges against the Discayas.
Pag-uusapan po ng aming pamilya at saka po ng aming mga abogado kung ano po ang mga susunod naming hakbangin, malampasan lang po namin ang dumadaan ito sa amin. Natural lang po, sa sarili ko po, ayaw ko pong palampasin ang kalapastangan ng ginawa ni Discaya sa aking pagkatao.
Officials from Land Bank of the Philippines also appeared before the commission. They were asked whether they found anything suspicious in transactions amounting to more than 50 million pesos, which are linked to multiple accounts under a single owner, including transactions reaching 2 billion pesos per month in Bulacan. But Land Bank refrained from giving further details, citing possible violations of the bank secrecy law. They said they are willing to discuss the matter in an executive session. This week, several high-profile personalities are expected to face the ICI, including House Majority Leader and Presidential son Sandro Marcos, Davao City 1st District Representative Paulo Pulong Duterte, and Benguet Lone District Representative Eric Yap. There is still no certainty whether their hearings will also be open to the public. For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, we are One News.
Well, meantime, the Cybercrime Investigation and Coordination Center, or CICC, said that some personalities linked to the flood control scam are now laundering large sums of money through cryptocurrencies. CICC Acting Executive Director Undersecretary Aboy Paraiso told One News' Storycon that these individuals are using nominal people, code wallets, and offshore exchanges to hide the money, with some even bypassing the local ban on Binance through VPNs. He added that the investigators began detecting unusually large cryptocurrency transactions, including amounts of 50 million pesos in early October. The CICC is working with local regulators and international agencies to trace transfers and to freeze assets abroad, but jurisdictional gaps remain a challenge.
We monitored several chatters asking for exorbitant amounts of USDTs one-time transactions na 50 million or bigger, doon natin na-detect if they're laundering the money.
And now in other news, the palace said that the first family is open to undergo lifestyle checks as questions persist over alleged irregularities in government projects. Maricel Halili has that report.
A lifestyle check for House Majority Leader Sandro Marcos. For Malacanang, it's not something to worry about. It's even welcome. At least that's according to Palace Press Officer Claire Castro, who said President Bongbong Marcos himself had read a report from the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism, which showed his son got the most amount of allocable funds from 2023 to 2025. PCIJ had referred to these allocables as the modern pork barrel. But while she couldn't speak for House Majority Leader Sandro, Castro highlighted how he had submitted himself to the Independent Commission for Infrastructure willingly.
Siya po ang nagboluntaryo. Kung ano man po ang issue sa kanya, siya mismo ang pupunta sa ICI para maimbestigahan po siya. Bigyan lamang po siya ng date para po magkaroon ng tamang schedule.
But here's one thing Castro wanted prompt action on. The report by the Commission on Audit stating there's still over 14 million pesos in uncollected foreign travel expenses by the Office of the President as of December 2024. Apparently, the OP has been covering other agencies' foreign trips. Castro clarified that more than half of that amount have already been collected.
Collection letters were already issued in April and May 2025. Of the said amount, 7,887,555.64 or 55% were already collected to date. The OP consistently monitors the outstanding bills through monthly aging report and sending of collection demand letters.
The palace also appealed to Senate to hasten the passage of the 2026 national budget. This is in response to Senate Finance Committee Chair Sherwin Gatchalian saying that with all the things they needed to study, next year's budget might not be it in time.
Dapat bilisan na pag-aaral. Ayaw po ng Pangulo ng reenacted budget. Alam po natin yan. So hanggat maaari, bilis-bilisan natin, although kahit tapos na yung kapos ang panahon, sana po mas mapabilis natin.
And as far as the Pogo investigation is concerned, Castro also reported that per latest info from the Department of Interior and Local Government, Cassandra Ong is still in the Philippines. Ong is one of the personalities wanted for qualified human trafficking due to the raided Pogo operations in Porac, Pampanga. The palace is now appealing for help from the public to capture Ong.
Kung sino man din po sa mga kababayan natin ang makakakita kay Cassandra Ong, ipagbigay alam din po agad sa ating law enforcement agencies para po magampanan din po ang pagsiserve ng warrant of arrest sa kanya.
For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
Cavite Representative Kiko Barzaga has deleted a social media post that triggered his 60-day suspension, complying with the House's 24-hour ultimatum. The 24 Facebook posts cited by the Ethics Committee, including lewd images and displays of wealth, are no longer visible as of Tuesday evening. Barzaga was suspended after 249 lawmakers voted to adopt the committee's report, which called his post conduct unbefitting of a House member. He will lose his salary and allowances during the suspension. The ethics complaint filed by National Unity Party members cited inappropriate and misleading posts. Now, don't go away. We still have more stories right after this break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. The Bureau of Customs said that the remaining luxury vehicles of the Diskaya couple are scheduled for a second auction this December 5. 1 unit each of the 2022 Toyota Tundra, 2023 Toyota Sequoia, and 2023 Rolls-Royce Cullinan, and a 2022 Bentley Bentayga will be auctioned. The Auction and Cargo Disposal Division of the Port of Manila will oversee the proceedings. Remember that in the first auction last November 20, the government earned over 38 million pesos from the sale of 3 other luxury vehicles confiscated from the couple. And to talk more about the auction for the remaining luxury vehicles of the Diskaya couple, we have BOC Deputy Chief of Staff Attorney Chris Bendijo joining us this morning. Good morning, Attorney. Thanks for being here on Morning Matters.
Hi, Ms. Pao. Good morning. Thank you for having me on your show.
All right, so Attorney, the last time you had an auction, only 3 vehicles were sold and they fetched a total of about 38 million pesos and all. And the BOC will have its second auction this Friday, December 5. Walk us through some of the changes that you will be implementing in order to gain more or higher bids and to secure a better turnout.
Well, the very first modification that we did is the adjustment of the floor price. We computed a higher depreciation factor to lower the minimum floor price. So hopefully, by lowering the amount, we will be enticing more bidders to participate. And with more competition, we're hoping that there will be clustering so that the bids could increase. But that would be the most substantial change that we'll be doing for this Friday. We will have public viewing December 2 and 3. Hoping for all other interested bidders to come and visit the BOC to see the vehicles for themselves so that they can actually, compute their bid, adjust it accordingly. And I guess with the floor price adjustment, we're really hoping for more bidders to participate.
So, Attorney, the public viewing began already yesterday, December 2, and also today. Have you seen stronger interest or more people taking a look at these vehicles?
Well, surprisingly, when we announced the auction to be on December 5, even prior to the public viewing, we already had one registration who paid for the registration fee, submitted the required documentary requirements. So we're hoping that this would start, a trend. We could hype it up some more, and we're thankful for your program to have this information dissemination, hoping that more bidders could participate this Friday.
Well, before we get to on who can participate in the bidding or the second bidding, I wanted to ask, Attorney, you did mention the lowering of the floor price. How much are we talking about? Are we talking about a significant amount? Because, syempre, may market value din po yan.
Yes. If I can mention them one by one, for the Toyota Tundra, the new floor price is at 3.472 million. For the Toyota Sequoia, it is at 4.8 million. For the Rolls-Royce, if you recall, this was at the 45 million range originally. It is now reduced to 36 million mahigit, no? For the Bentley Bentayga, this is at 13 million. This was originally at 17 million in the original auction. So substantially, we've lowered the prices. And from feedback from the previous auction, we received this comment from one of the participating bidders that if we lowered the Rolls-Royce to the 30 million range, they would be interested to participate in that auction. So hoping that that would be true, we're hoping for more participants in this Friday auction.
I guess ako personally, I'm curious about the Rolls-Royce. So you lowered it by 9 million pesos from 45 to 36. Meron na bang sure buyer yan? Is someone actually interested in this infamous Rolls-Royce vehicle of the Diskayas?
Well, we're hoping that comments that we received during the first auction would be true. That if it would be reduced to the 30 million range, they would be participating in the next auction. So, as to whether or not that would be a sure bidder or buyer, we really can't tell until we conduct the auction on Friday.
Okay. So going back to my question, Attorney, who can really participate in these bids? Because the last time, I believe they were bid out to companies, Simplex Industrial Corporation and Le Central Jewelries. Meron po bang background check din na ginagawa, Attorney, dun sa mga buyer ng mga vehicles, considering that some of them even paid through cash?
That's correct, no? That's why we are requesting the interested bidders to submit their income tax returns or business tax returns with proof of payment and receipt by the Bureau of Internal Revenue, because we want to establish two things, no? First, we want to establish that they would have the capacity to pay for the items. Their income would be commensurate to their purchasing power or the ability to bid. Now, second, we would want to establish as well that they would not fall under those prohibited from participating in the bidding under Customs Administrative Order 3-2020. That would mean you're not a customs employee or official. You're not a consignee, importer, broker, or owner of the item that is subjected of the auction. So that's why we are requesting them to submit this, and that's why we also have a deadline for submission the day before the auction, because we would need time to verify the documents as well. So there's background checking done naman.
Okay, so attorney, for this second auction, how much is the BOC expecting to earn from these 4 remaining vehicles?
For the remaining 4, we're anticipating a little above 50 million. And also, well, depending on how it will go, no, but we're also considering displaying some of the forfeited vehicles as well, that will be subjected to direct offers. So if time would permit, depending again on how fast we can mobilize, how fast we can clean the vehicles, we might be displaying the Bugattis as well. And the commissioner has made it very clear, all forfeited vehicles, we will be expediting processes to make sure that we are able to convert them to revenue, because the current state of our country, we are really in dire need of revenues.
Attorney, these forfeited vehicles, so meron pa pong na hindi sa mga diskaya?
That's correct, no? We have still an inventory of luxury vehicles in the port, and the commissioner gave instructions to display most of them, if possible, within or during the auction, so that we would be announcing as well which of the vehicles can be subjected to direct offers, because really, we want it to be fast-moving, or the commissioner wants it to be fast-moving, meaning to say that he is targeting maybe an auction maybe every 2 or 3 weeks, until we fully maximize the inventory, maximize the value of the vehicles, because they are just depreciating. And instead of the government taking advantage of the value, we are losing value because of the depreciation. So the instruction given is to display, announce everything that's subject for auction, those that can be subjected for the direct offer, basically just convert everything to revenue.
Okay, but attorney, you were also quoted as saying that the BOC also retains the option of condemning or destroying these vehicles kung hindi pa rin po siya mabenta. So under what conditions will that happen exactly, where the BOC will choose destruction of these vehicles instead of just re-auctioning them?
Actually, what I mentioned was just remedies available to the Bureau of Customs. What can we do with respect to forfeited items? So the remedies under existing policy would be 1, to auction, 2, to donate to other government agencies, and 3, to condemn or to destroy. So it's really an alternative option on the part of the commissioner to exercise based on his discretionary power. But really, again, the inclination of Commissioner Ariel Nepomuceno, given that our country really needs a budget, is really to convert everything to revenue instead of destroying them. Of course, the nature of the vehicles, it would also be inappropriate for us to donate it to other government agencies, So we cannot donate luxury vehicles, sports cars to other government entities, because it would be inappropriate for them to use them as well. So we're really limited to auction and direct offer. While that condemnation is available, the inclination of Commissioner Ariel is not to exercise this power.
May timeline po ba yun, attorney? So how long will you be willing to accept direct bids or yung possible donation nga rin before ultimately yung condemnation?
Well, under the existing policy, we have to subject the items to 2 biddings at the minimum. So if there would be 2 failed biddings, that's the only instance that the Bureau of Customs is allowed to entertain and consider direct offers. But even if we consider direct offers, that does not mean that we are not allowed to exercise other functions or other remedies. And even if we consider the direct offer, the commissioner would still have the power to consider whether or not it's acceptable to entertain other offers. There are still processes for that. So that's the only instance that direct offers can happen if there is already two failed biddings.
Attorney, I want to go back to the root of the problem, kung bakit nakapasok nga itong mga vehicles din ng mga Discayas. And based on the BOC's investigation, I understand that customs officials found that the import entries of these 7 particular vehicles bore questionable certificates of payment. What's being done to address that, Attorney?
Well, first, we had to suspend what they called a temporary or provisional release. No, before when they imported vehicles, they would be allowed a temporary release even without the ATRIC. No, the ATRIC is the Authority to Release Imported Goods issued by the Bureau of Internal Revenue. So immediately, the commissioner suspended that. So right now, if you want to import vehicles, you have to wait for the ATRIG before you can release it at the customs. Now, with respect to the LTO, we have a joint TWG already working on streamlining the process because it appears that there were some certificates of payment which appeared to have been forged or fraudulent, and yet it was registered by the LTO. So there's a TWG ongoing. We are strengthening our partnership with the LTO. The good thing is that Assistant Secretary Marcos Lacanela and Commissioner Ariel Pomosiano are good friends. And the communication is very easy with the LTO now. So we're strengthening our partnership. We're strengthening our processes. We're making sure that the certificates of payment are authentic. And we are also putting in place other measures limiting the officers of the BOC who can transmit certificates of payment and inclusion of all material data in the single the SAD document. No? So these are measures that would make it more difficult to import vehicles and misdeclare them or misclassify them.
So kumbaga mas mahigpit na talaga, Attorney. But going back to the seizure of assets, the BIR has also issued a notice of restraint and levy directing you, the BOC, to turn over the remaining properties of the Discayas. Attorney, meron po bang conflicting mandates ngayon between agencies when it comes to asset recovery, and how are you navigating that?
There's no conflict, no. With respect to the jurisdiction of the Bureau of Customs, it is limited to those that would undergo importation process, and if there would be deficiencies in that process. On the part of the Bureau of Internal Revenue, their perspective is with respect to tax deficiencies, perhaps the ITR deficiencies, no. So there is really no conflict there. As to how we harmonize it, during the TWG meeting in the ICI, actually the other day, we had this subgrouping, no, of entities that would be concentrating on asset recovery, and the BOC was tasked to chair that committee. So we are creating this subcommittee under the TWG, and we will be making sure that our processes are harmonized. We do not overlap one another. We do not have redundancies. There will be policies in place, and there will be another meeting for that purpose. No? So again, to make sure that we have a very efficient and effective process.
Okay, Attorney, on other matters, BOC recently launched itong a new portal called Isumbong kay Commissioner. How exactly will this improve the way complaints are handled, Attorney, no? Because recently lang din, naglabas ng listahan yung ARTA at kasama po ang BOC sa top 10 most complained agencies in the government.
First of all, this was really inspired by what the president started. Having that ability to directly communicate with the head of the agency is a very empowering feature for our stakeholders. And to be candid about it, the commissioner is very hands-on with respect to this project. He wants to monitor all verifiable complaints that would go through this portal. Now, how we handle this, we have allocated, I think, more than 28 individuals from the Bureau of Customs, not to mention focal persons for each office that might be subject of a complaint, to make sure that all complaints are handled efficiently and in a very timely manner. No? So, very hands-on ang ating commissioner patungkol dito. Now, with respect to the ARTA issue, it's not something to be proud of, no? But if you look at the numbers, I think we're at the bottom 10. So, I think that I take that as a small victory. We're improving. Hopefully, with more processes like this, we can improve some more.
Attorney, finally, my last question. What if the complaints involve sensitive issues such as corruption or irregular practices within the BOC? Can the public expect that this will lead to actual action from the BOC, from the commissioner?
Definitely. Every complaint, every actionable complaint will be treated with confidentiality. If there is verifiable document that would be or evidence that would be best, we can assure you that it will be acted upon. And assuming we move forward, no, assuming there would be administrative or criminal cases to be filed in relation to the complaints raised through this portal, that would also be posted in the website. Again, the direction of Commissioner Ariel Nepomuceno is full transparency. So complaints with respect to admin matters, criminal with respect to graft, bribery, etc., that will also be posted in our website eventually.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning. I know you're mobile, attorney, but thanks for stopping and taking the time to talk to us. That was BOC Deputy Chief of Staff, Attorney Chris Bendijo.
Thank you. Good morning.
Do stay tuned. Morning Matters will be back after the short break. Good morning and welcome back. I'm Pauline Verzosa, and here on Morning Matters, we talk about the most pressing issues and we give you the context behind the headlines. NBI agents have raided 2 condominium units in BGC owned by fugitive former Congressman Zaldico. The units were inspected by the NBI's Organized and Transnational Crime Division with assistance from the Philippine Competition Commission. Investigators say they were looking for records tied to supposed budget insertions, collusion, and kickbacks. Only cause lawyers were present during the operation. Meanwhile, the Sandigan Bayan arraigned DPWH Region 4B official Juliet Calvo, who pleaded not guilty to graft charges. She, along with 8 other DPWH officials, face graft and malversation cases, while arrest warrants have been issued for Co and several SunWest executives who remain at large. And now joining us this morning is DOJ spokesperson, Attorney Polo Martinez. Good morning, Attorney. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Pauline. Good morning. Good morning to the viewers. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, the DOJ, the Department of Justice, has been at the center of several major developments this week, from the ongoing flood control probes. I understand, Attorney, that 3 of the 5 cases with the DOJ are already submitted for resolution. What are the next steps there, Attorney?
So for cases being submitted for resolution, that means that all the evidence have been submitted at this point. That includes the complaint by the NBI, of course, and the counter affidavits by the respondents. So as long as they do not intend to submit any additional supplemental counter affidavit, for example, then being submitted for resolution means that all there is to do is to assess the evidence submitted and determine whether the evidence as it stands meets the quantum of proof under the rules, that being prima facie evidence with reasonable certainty of conviction. So we can expect that to be done in the next couple of weeks, hopefully by mid-December, and we could then see if whether the case will then proceed to trial.
Right now, attorney, what kind of evidence is the panel currently scrutinizing? Are we talking about documents? Will this also include what was found from the site inspections, testimonies, and even technical reports?
Okay, so with respect to the particular evidence now, Pauline, I'm afraid that that's something I cannot disclose as to not preempt the judgment or the resolution by the panel of prosecutors. But as to the type of evidence, it's that includes not just affidavits, but also the evidence specific to the sites in question. So for the 3 out of 5 cases, we're looking at Sims Construction in Bulacan. Testimony as well as documentary evidence.
And so for these 3 cases, Attorney Polo, just to clarify for the public, who exactly are the respondents? I know this involves engineers from the DPWH 1st District Engineering Office and Sims Construction, but are we talking about Henry Alcantara, Bryce Hernandez, JP Mendoza?
Yeah, of course, yes. So all those names that you mentioned are included as respondents, DPWH officials, and we're also looking into the culpability of certain high-ranking congressmen and senators, high-ranking politicians in this case. But again, as to not preempt and preclude the judgment by the panel of prosecutors, these are items that we cannot yet disclose, but then the public could expect that the resolution will indicate whether or not these people or these officials are in fact being implicated as well.
So based on your investigation, attorney, you already found ties to higher officials, possibly congressmen?
Well, there is no definitive link yet until the resolution has been submitted or has been rendered. But it's safe to say that links are being found or are being seen in the evidence submitted that could possibly lead to it. So I think there's been, I guess what that means is there's development, there's progress into the public clamor, for seeing whether or not we could really look into the culpability of these high-ranking officials.
And what will the DOJ do, attorney, when those ties are established? Possibly, will they be given to the ombudsman for the Sandigan Bayan to decide on?
Yeah, that's correct, Paulina. Thanks for mentioning that. So, these high-ranking officials being under the jurisdiction of the Sandigan Bayan, then if they are found to be, if their participation is found in these cases, then these cases will necessarily have to be referred to the Sandigan Bayan for its appropriate action, in a way of by means of referral, before we could then proceed to file it with the Sandigan Bayan.
Okay, attorney. So these cases, I understand, involve. Here are some of the possible charges on malversation through falsification. There's perjury. There's also violations of the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act. But among those allegations, which would you say is the strongest or has the strongest supporting evidence or would lead to an actual conviction of these respondents?
Okay, so again, Pauline, I'm afraid I'm gonna have to withhold some information with respect to that kasi itong mga bagay na to, it's up to the panel of prosecutors to decide on. And if we speak too early on it, similar to the sub judice rule, with this in courts, we cannot say anything which will be subject to any interpretation or which the public could misconstrue. So until these evidence are aptly and appropriately assessed by the panel of prosecutors themselves, we're going to have to step back a bit and let them do the work and let them be the ones to say whether or not the evidence merits or could stand the rigors of trial. What I could say, though, is these malversation and violations of the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act are grave enough offenses that if ever it does proceed to trial or if ever the information is thus filed in court, then they will be meted with a heavy penalty in case of conviction.
Okay, I understand you can't really talk about evidence yet as of now, but maybe you can walk us, attorney, through the elements needed in order to establish violations of the Anti-Graft Act.
Okay, so the Anti-Graft Act, there are actually many items and provisions under that law that point to many different crimes. So when someone says that there is a violation of the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act, or RA 3019, it doesn't necessarily mean just one crime, because there are very many sections in it. But I think the common provisions, common elements rather, related among the provisions is when one individual holding a position in government acquires unwarranted benefits to himself to the prejudice of government. So we'll have to be able to look at the elements and see whether or not practices were done which were detrimental to the public, and whether they indeed received benefits from these practices. So it's those elements we're looking at. When we say prejudice, that's if funds are being diverted or taken from the coffers of government, then obviously there is prejudice to the government. In the case of those projects, if no project was implemented, yet funds were diverted or stolen from the coffers of government, then that's indicative of the prejudice we're looking at.
Well, as we mentioned, 3 cases are already up for resolution. So what happens now to the 2 remaining cases that are still under preliminary investigation? What exactly is the DOJ waiting for? Is it supplemental submissions of affidavits? I understand some of the respondents also asked for an extension. Tama ba, attorney?
Tama, yeah. So tama, no. The extension of time was asked last November 24. So for all of those who actually asked for extensions of time, they were only granted until November 28. So dapat at this point nakapag-submit na sila, no? For those for those cases that are still undergoing PI or preliminary investigation, that's only because some of the respondents, or rather some respondents were added to the case because of one reason or another. So yun yung mga and so because they were added late in the process, then they necessarily received the complaint late. So they were given time to submit their counter affidavits. But all those who were able to receive their complaint timely, were able to submit their timely the complaint, then they were only given until November 28. That's 4 days from the actual deadline of the filing of counter affidavits, which was November 24. So mabilis na nga yun because normally in the ordinary course of things, respondents would be given say like 2 to 3 weeks to be able to draft their counter affidavits, but because we know that time is of the essence in this case, we gave them a shorter period of time to do so. So lahat ng nabigyan ng time to submit or whose motions for extension were granted were only given that short period of time.
Attorney, can you disclose sino-sino po itong mga humingi ng extension?
Marami yan, Pauline. So and it's different per case. So remember that these 5 cases, even though na may mga common correspondence siya, they're not all the same, and the number is also not the same. So sa 5 na yan, one case, for example, would have 6 respondents, and then the another case would have as many as 20. So it depends kasi on the particular type of facts and circumstances that's particular to every case. But like I said earlier, these 5 cases, and we remember that these 5 cases were the same cases referred back to us by the Ombudsman, in which we were deputized. The DOJ was deputized to conduct preliminary investigation. So iba-iba yan, but they all relate to the Sims construction in Bulacan. And we're looking at more charges.
Attorney, I wanted to get an update on the applications before the Witness Protection Program who are still currently under evaluation to become state witnesses.
So what we know so far is that there are 2 individuals who are provisionally admitted to the program, in which they are granted provisional benefits under the WPP, or the Witness Protection Benefit Security Act, which is the law. That is Engineer Henry Alcantara and Yusek Bernardo. And as we know, recent development is that Engineer Henry Alcantara had already surrendered or returned 110 million of the funds that he had admitted to have taken from the coffers of government as part of the terms and conditions of his memorandum of agreement with the DOJ or the WPP. So ito na yung sinasabi nating restitution, no, as part of the conditions.
Per attorney, is that more likely that they will become state witnesses because they are complying already with that requirement of restitution?
No. So whether or not it's likely is uncertain at this point because we have to understand that the restitution is only one of many conditions under the memorandum of agreement. So unless they do comply sa mga ibang tungkulin nila dun sa MOA or the conditions set out, then it's too early to say whether or not they will be admitted talaga as state witnesses. No, but they are covered witnesses. I think it's important to make that distinction. Not just because you're provisionally covered by the MOA or by the terms of the WPP benefits, doesn't necessarily mean that you will be ultimately admitted as a state witness at the end of it all. So it's not that. And even if you are admitted as state witness, one thing we want to make clear is wala tayong blanket immunity. No, any immunity that will be granted to these individuals who will comply with restitution are only immune insofar as the amount that they return is concerned. So, kunwari, let's say you return the amount, but then you also have pending charges of tax evasion filed by the BIR, then you are not immune from those suits because those pertain to taxes you owe the government and not necessarily just the amount that you took from the treasury.
Okay, so Alcantara and Bernardo are now provisionally admitted to the WPP. What benefits do that entail? What's given to them as covered witnesses?
So it's numerous benefits, a number of benefits there. I think the most important, and I think what the public should take notice of is the protection lang. That means protection not just like security protection, but also physical protection of their family members as well, who may be subject to threats. And currently, they also pending suits cannot be filed against them again in relation to the amount that they just returned. But also, we have to take note that the amount that Henry Alcantara, the amount that he returned, is only it's only a partial amount as of now. The 110 is not the total amount yet, and we're still determining just how much he's actually supposed to return, no, and whether or not he can still get those still.
Well, Attorney, I understand also that the ICI recently held a technical working group meeting with other agencies. Kasama na po ang DOJ, also with the BOC, BIR, DPWH, among others. Can you tell us exactly what role the DOJ is playing there? And when it comes to asset recovery as well, how aggressive is the DOJ acting on that?
Well, one thing we have to take note is asset recovery is not the primary task. It doesn't fall under the mandate of the DOJ insofar as investigation is concerned. Ang pag-asset recovery lang na ginagawa ng DOJ is in relation to the witness protection program, wherein we could stipulate restitution as one of the elements, or one of the conditions rather, in the memorandum of agreement. So I think asset recovery falls under the jurisdiction of the AMLAC, the Anti-Money Laundering Council. And any freeze order they may file correspondingly with the appropriate, the Court of Appeals. Based on the evidence that they have currently. I think, as I've mentioned before, it's important to make distinctions between the jurisdictions and mandate of the ICI, the Ombudsman, and the DOJ, so that the people don't get frustrated. When let's say words like asset recovery or phrases like that are brought up. We first ask, ano ba ang trabaho ng DOJ with respect to this particular goal? No, okay, then we know that it's only in relation to the restitution, which they could stipulate as a provision in the MOA. Other than that, AMLAC being the more having a more technical mandate, would be more in charge of being able to further this particular goal with the means and capacity and the resources that they have.
Okay, Attorney, so let's talk about timelines. How soon can the public expect updates on the pending arrest warrants. I mean, I'm sure all our government agencies know that that people are getting impatient, right? Public trust is at an all-time low. So when can we expect arrest warrants or even possibly mga makukulong? Tama po ba na may makukulong na po by Christmas?
So we're malapit na kami sa goal na yan. Since that's the timeline we're working with. I think that's one thing people have to remember. Also, in comparison kasi sa timeline that's provided under the rules, we actually are given a lot more time under the rules to be able to resolve these cases. In fact, under the rules, sinasabi na 60 days. But because we understand the public clamor and the time is of the essence, we are doing everything we can to expedite these cases so that by mid-December, we could then file the case in court. And pag-file namin ang kaso in court, the information filed in court could then compel the judge to issue the corresponding warrant of arrest. And the warrant of arrest will then be the first step into acquiring jurisdiction over these persons. And then we could then proceed to trial and see if conviction is warranted under the evidence submitted. So,
Well, speaking
doing everything we can, aggressively, in fact.
Well, speaking of arrest warrants, there's already one out for former Congressman Zaldico, and yet his Philippine passport remains active because the DFA says it has not received a court order just yet. I understand this is a matter with the courts, but explain to us, Attorney Polo, what does the court need to establish before canceling a passport, considering that the accused already has an arrest warrant?
So as long as the case is already filed in court and the charges are already in court, all that there has to be done is for the prosecution or the complainant to file the corresponding motion for cancellation of passport on the ground that one person is evading charges in the Philippines to be able to cancel his passport. So as long as the court sees that at the time the information was filed, for instance, wala na sa bansa yung would-be pugante or would-be fugitive, then it would have sufficient grounds, more or less, to grant the motion for cancellation of passport. Again, but this is something up to the courts to decide. It's a case-to-case basis, and it depends on the particular facts and circumstances with respect to a certain case and with respect to a certain individual. Kasi an individual may have many different cases filed in court, but a motion to cancel passport may not necessarily be granted in all of them, some over others, depending kasi yan sa facts. But yes, so normally it's as simple as if you, at the time of the filing of the charges, had already left the Philippines, and then there is evidence sufficient to show that you did so because of fear of being prosecuted here, then the motion will more or less be granted now based on jurisprudence.
And yesterday, Attorney, the NBI already searched the condominium of former Congressman Zaldico to find any evidence of possible bid rigging and in connection with the flood control projects. Meron po bang coordination between the NBI and the DOJ on that?
So, it goes into the mandate of specific agencies. That's primarily law enforcement's job to enforce the warrant. The DOJ's job with respect to any arrest implemented is only to be able to supervise the seizure of items if indeed some exist pursuant to, for example, a search warrant that is also implemented. So, the coordination will come in once the NBI does file once the NBI transfers the evidence to the proper prosecution panel or team in charge of the case.
And finally, for my last question, Attorney, you previously said that in the case of Congressman Zaldico, the DOJ is still gathering proper evidence, but you're, quote, getting there. Now, at this stage, are you confident with what you have? Because on the other side, you have his legal counsel, Attorney Rondain, saying he's confident that there will be nothing to implicate his client, and the burden is on the prosecution to prove Congressman Co's guilt.
First, let's make it clear, tama naman si Attorney Rondain and any respondent for that matter, that the burden of proof will always be with the prosecution. Whether or not definitive na makakapagsampa kami ng kaso, I'm afraid I cannot speak on behalf of the prosecutors in charge of these cases. But what I can say definitively is that we have more evidence now pursuant to our investigation to be able to proceed. In other words, there is development. So it's not as if that what we have now is the same as what we had a month ago or 2 months ago. There has been progress, and so our confidence has been building up. But again, before anything is rendered, before any resolution is rendered, it would be too early to speak, I'm afraid, no? But we're getting there, like I said.
All right, well, thank you very much for joining us this morning and for giving us your insights. That was DOJ spokesperson, Attorney Polo Martinez.
Thank you.
Don't go away. We still have more matters to discuss right after this break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. And now on to the weather. The low pressure area monitored outside the Philippine area of responsibility may enter the country today. Once inside the PAR, it will be given the local name Wilma. Pagasa added that the LPA may make landfall in the eastern parts of the country. Meanwhile, cloudy skies with scattered rains and thunderstorms are expected over Basilan, Sulu, and Tawi-Tawi due to the intertropical convergence zone. Cagayan Valley, Ilocos Norte, Apayao, Kalinga, and Aurora will also experience rains caused by the northeast monsoon. And Senate President Tito Soto says anyone bothered by Senator Bato de la Rosa's continued absence from the Senate can file an ethics complaint. Here's the report.
Ang advice ko sa kanya, kung wala siyang intention na mag-surrender, magtago siya mabuti.
That was the advice of Senate President Pro Tempore Ping Lacson to Senator Bato de la Rosa, who has been absent since the Senate resumed session on November 11. According to Lacson, the last time he spoke with de la Rosa was in their senators group chat about 2 weeks ago.
Kumusta ka na? Mag-ingat ka lang, gano'n. Ang biro niya na sa akin, sir, i-break ko yung record mo sa pagtatago. Tapos may haha.
Recall that Lacson also went into hiding when he was implicated in the Deser Corbito double murder case. He was later acquitted. Meanwhile, Senate President Tito Soto confirmed that De La Rosa continues to receive his salary despite being absent for weeks.
Does that mean kahit 2 to 3 weeks ng absence si Sen Bato, sumisweldo po siya?
Sa Congress nga, merong 1 buong taon hindi mapasok eh.
Opo.
Wala naman silang ginagawa, wala rin umaamal eh. Diba?
Opo.
O ito, 2 to 3 weeks pa lang.
Pero may sweldo yan, SP? Diretso?
Siyempre.
Okay. So,
allotted na yun eh.
Soto added that the office and staff of Senator Bato continue to function even in his absence.
yung opisina niya nagpa-function naman?
Oo, nagpa-function naman. Mga empleyado niya lahat. Nag-aaral din ng mga bills and all that.
Tuloy-tuloy ang function kahit wala yung senador, SP?
Oo. Napakaraming congressman na ginagawa yan dati, ba't di nyo gini-question?
Sir, wala pong rina.
Bakit ngayon ang Senate na napapag-initan sa 2-3 linggo di pumasok?
Recently, Senator Win Gatchalian said the Senate might need to revisit its rules regarding prolonged absences. For now, there are no clear guidelines on the matter. Still, anyone may file a complaint with the Senate Ethics Committee.
Siguro kung mayroong mga kababayan tayo na gustong tanungin itong ganyan, at saka let's say gustong panagutin ng isang legislator, mag-file sila ng ethics complaint. Yung pinakamagandang remedyo para matalakay natin yun.
For Senator Alan Peter Cayetano, however, the government must ensure that Senator Bato's rights and freedoms remain protected.
When your life or liberty is threatened, you really think of option. So yun yung option niya. So rather than pag-initan siya na parang bakit ka wala dito, ang question, bakit walang assurance na proprotektahan ang karapatan?
Well, in other news, Philippine and Hong Kong authorities have met to finalize assistance for domestic helpers affected by the deadly fire in Taipo. DMW Secretary Hans Kakdak says Hong Kong will provide over 3 million pesos to the families of those who died. Injured workers will receive up to 1.2 million pesos, while survivors will get over 150,000 pesos. The Filipino fatality is 40-year-old Marian Esteban, who was set to return home this December. The DMW is now preparing her repatriation while also helping OFWs who lost passports and documents in the fire.
There's been great assistance with respect to our lone fatality thus far, and we hope it stays as one fatality. Already the family is being assisted, and very soon with the cooperation of the Hong Kong government and the Hong Kong Labor Department, her remains will be repatriated to her family.
Right, and before we go today, what started as a single net on the street has now grown into a booming community. Pickleball is taking over Metro Manila, and the world is taking notice, with international delegates visiting the Philippines to learn from its grassroots rise. Mobile journalist Denise Valdesancho reports.
The popularity of pickleball has been growing rapidly in the Philippines throughout the years. Here at the Emerald Avenue in Pasig, players just once started with a single net. Now, almost the entire road has been taken over by pickleball enthusiasts. What began as a small weekend activity has now transformed into one of Metro Manila's most vibrant grassroots sports hubs.
It started with just one court. We just lined the streets with chalk and set up one net. And people who were walking around were curious, like, what is this? It's a new sport.
As more players tried the game, pickleball quickly became a weekend ritual for many, including newcomers who never expected to fall in love with the sport.
Wala. Gusto ko lang siya i-explore talaga. Gusto ko lang i-try. Tapos eventually yun, nagustuhan ko na parang in a week siguro naka 3 to 4 games.
Pickleball's charm lies in its simplicity.
Even if you don't have any racket sport background or any sport background, you can actually play pickleball. And even the first time you try, you can get into a game.
This accessibility is one reason the sport has caught global attention. In fact, delegates from at least 34 countries are in Pasig to observe how the Philippines is building pickleball from the ground up. Organizers stress this isn't just a passing trend.
It's really a game that is here to stay. It's not a trend. It's here to stay, and it's also a sport that you can really play for your whole lifetime.
Here at Emerald Avenue, anyone can drop by every Saturday and Sunday from 4 to 9 p.m. Free paddles are available for first-timers who want to give the sport a try. For players like Franco, what makes pickleball special goes beyond the court.
Wala, yun nakikita ko talaga yung people talaga eh. Kasi yung laro parang andyan lang yan eh. Yung mga tao talaga kasi yung para nagiging masaya na siya.
Beyond local play, leaders are now pushing for bigger goals, including getting pickleball recognized in major competitions. And with growing youth participation, the sport could carve an all-new pathway for Filipino athletes.
The theme of this year, the Global Pickleball Congress, is unification and grassroots development of pickleball. It's really working towards getting the sport into the Olympics, into the Asian Games, into the SEA Games, and even locally, into the Palarong Pambansa and Batang Pinoy.
Kapatid Denise Valdesancho, we are One News.
All right, and that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we've given you just the right start to your morning. Let's make the day matter. I'm Pauline Verzosa, kapatid. We are One News, all sides, all the time.